Welcome back. What you just saw was a resource, and it's a resource that we are excited to make available to you as fellow advocates for school choice, for those who are, a lot of times folks say we need more resources. If you could just give us some resources to kind of broach the conversation and get it started, it could help us a lot along the way. So that is exactly what this is. The goal for the film essentially was to provide that resource and that conversation starter. We hit it from 30,000 feet, if you noticed. We went through the different options available. We just kind of painted with a broad brush to really get that conversation started, because overwhelmingly around the state, many parents, many school teachers, many school officials, and many school board members, and certainly many legislators are not aware of a lot about the issue. And so we have to educate them as well as educate ourselves before we can move forward. And so that is one of the major goals behind the film. Now, you may have also noticed the film is only about 35 minutes long. That's there for a couple of reasons. We want you to take the movie back to your organization, whether that's a church, whether that is your Kiwanis Club, or whether that is your Tea Party group, or whether that is your GOP, Democrat Party. Every group is invited to participate in this. This is a nonpartisan issue. It is an issue that we can all jump and join around. And so we want you to take the film. It's about 30 minutes long, and it was produced so that you could sit down, show it to your group, and then have the conversation that we're about to have here up front. And so I want to go ahead and invite our panel up now. And we're going to bring the lights up in the main room. We're going to bring the cards up here as well, and get started with a little bit of a conversation about the issue. And then if you're thinking of your questions in the room here in Atlanta, when we throw it to you for questions, we're going to have a roaming mic. So just be ready, raise your hand when we throw it to that portion of the conversation, and ask your question when you get the microphone so everybody can hear you around the state. And then also we're going to be taking some questions that have been texted in from Albany, where we have a couple hundred folks joined together, from Ellijay, from Rome, from Southwest Atlanta, from all over the state, and from your very own home. So I want to invite Senate Majority Leader Chip Rogers up to join me on the stage this evening. Also, a little bit of a surprise, but he is always ready. Tony Roberts from the Georgia Charter School Association. He is just finding this out, folks, so hang in here. But the man, he's a firebrand. He can handle it. Also want to invite Rich Thompson up from 100 Dads, who's going to join us on the panel. Dr. Christine Reese, thank you for volunteering. Didn't even have to ask. Dr. Christine Reese, who is a professor of economics at Georgia Tech. You saw all of these folks in the film. And then Eric Coakling with the Georgia Family Council with the Center for an Educated Georgia, representing them tonight. Eric? And we're going to grab an extra chair. How about that? All right. We've got a full house. But this is definitely a passionate group. And Virginia, you coming up too? Or? Okay. Okay.
People texting in.
Okay. Sounds good. We'll just have a roundhouse. This will be like a Thanksgiving dinner kind of thing. We'll just everybody loosen up. We'll start on this end with Rich. Rich, you talked about a little bit in the film your reasons for getting involved in the school choice movement and the advocacy that you've dedicated yourself to in launching 100 Dads. Can you explain really briefly the genesis of 100 Dads? What are the goals that your organization stands for, and why did you feel an organization like this needed to be started? What was the need when you went to school board meetings that you saw was absent that you wanted to address?
Well, first of all, the genesis of my whole involvement in public education reform was my two daughters. So you can say I have very selfish reasons. But I was invited a few years ago to become an active dad in a school, and they said, Mr. Thompson, we just really need some more men to show up and be participating in the PTA and other activities, and so I volunteered. But what I found out when I got there was that for a dad who came with somewhat of a, type A personality, with a business acumen, they weren't very well welcomed at that school. When we made suggestions and ideas on how to improve things, there was no system in place to react and respond to the recommendations that came from me and other dads. So in working in conjunction with the Georgia Charter School Association and on the Parent Advocacy Committee, we came up with a plan that we needed to create an organization where dads can connect and come together, and they can share the same passion and work to be a voice for their children in their school. And so whether we can do it at the PTA or PTO or on the local school council, or whether we have to operate outside the current system like 100 Dads does, we will be a voice for our children to improve quality of education for all.
Okay. Professor Reese. Dr. Reese has been a friend and traveled a little bit with me on a lot of different issues that we've talked about concerning economic freedom. With this specific issue of educational justice and educational freedom, school choice, Dr. Reese, a lot of folks are unaware of the economic impact that this issue has specifically on the state, specifically for businesses that are looking to locate or relocate to Georgia and really get off on the right foot. How does this affect the state? Can you tell us about the size and scope of the issue as it affects business and growing our economy?
Well, I can speak to this. I think in the film, Kelly McCutcheon talked about the Tax Reform Council that proposed a tax system for Georgia last year. I was on that council and was privileged to go around the state hearing testimony from various people and asking continually what would cause you to expand your business, what would cause you to create new jobs, what would cause you to advocate bringing other businesses to Georgia. And taxes were a very, very important issue and really support going ahead with tax reform. But we also heard even more about taxes, about education. And firms coming here are going to ask, what's your school system like? What are your public school systems like? Well, being a dreamer and thinking about school choice, I wondered what it would be like if we could say, well, the thing about Georgia is not just the public school system, but we have a rich variety of schools. That's a place where you can come and your parents and the workers can be free to choose the school that's right for their particular kid. Just say a little word about where we are here economically in the country. There was a series of letters to the editor in the Wall Street Journal today that said something like, does anybody realize how bad it is in this country, how bad the economic situation is? We have to generate a surplus, a budget surplus of 1.8% for something like 20 years to begin to dig ourselves out of this hole. Now, how are you going to do that? You're going to only do that by using your resources more wisely and training more wisely. And our biggest resource is our children. We have all the new technologies, all the new abilities, and God knows the will to get these children up to speed and on stream and competitive globally. And we just need school choice and market competition to do it.
Senate Majority Leader Chip Rogers has been in the fight down at the state capitol for quite a few years. We've talked about this on the radio, and we've talked about this under the Gold Dome. And just from the perspective of a lawmaker, from a legislator at the Capitol, when you come up against opposition, what are some of the key I don't want to say excuses, but what are some of the key things that are said in opposition when you raise the issue of providing more educational choice for students around Georgia?
Honestly, it's difficult for me to remember what they say because it's so illogical that I discard it to the back of my brain.
No encouragement needed, right?
There is no, I've never had someone who opposes me on this issue answer the single most fundamental question that we're all here tonight and agree on, and that is giving a child more educational options better than giving them fewer options? I've never had a liberal say, yes, I think we want children to have fewer options. We don't want to give them more options, because they can't answer that. I mean, and some may try, but I mean, the fact is as Dr. Reese said, having these options is tantamount to freedom, which is almost always the answer to just about every problem we face, whether it's the economy or education. But what I think we need to ask ourselves in this group, because I'm assuming everyone here is committed to this cause, and that is understanding the problem that we face, understanding the challenge that we have. Are we willing to say to society, are we going to put every option on the table to solve this? Because there are so many that we come in contact with every day that say, oh, I understand we have an education problem. I understand we've got to do something about it. But they're not willing to put all the options on the table. They'll say, well, I may want this option and this option, but that's really it. I mean, in my own county, we have this absurd argument going on because we have a school dictator that he didn't want an outside charter school company to come in and put in a public charter school. But after that, he came forth with this idea, well, we're going to start our own little charter system. I mean, that's the type of ridiculousness that we have to deal with. The fact is, if we're going to solve the problem, and if you're actually committed to the problem, to solving the problem, left, right, black, white, doesn't matter. If you're committed to solving the problem, are you willing to put every option on the table? And if you're willing to commit to putting every option on the table, then we can begin a real discussion. You can't begin a real discussion with the people down at the Capitol who oppose this because they're not willing to put every option on the table because their goal is not the same as ours. Our goal is that Georgia become the most educated state in America. Their goal is to save their job. That's two different goals. So I don't even care to discuss with the people whose only goal is to save their job. I want to discuss this issue with people that want to make Georgia the best place in America to be educated. That's who I want to talk to.
Tony Roberts is with the Georgia Charter School Association, the president of that organization. And a little walk down memory lane last year in the summer, the state Supreme Court ruled against the Georgia Charter School Commission, which was an entity set up by the state legislature, ultimately to authorize charter schools, to review charter school applications and to approve the charter school applications that came to it. The Supreme Court ruled that it was unconstitutional, and that set up a series of things that may occur during this legislative session or one to come. The question I have is one that actually is a confusion in the minds of some folks when they hear that argument, Tony, and they hear that this was a win, what happened last summer with the state Supreme Court overturning that commission's authority. This was a win for local control because it puts the power back in the hands of the local school board as opposed to a state-sized entity. Why is that a fallacy, and can you clear up the confusion that I think still exists in the minds of some folks? Tony?
I appreciate your asking me this question. That will require 1 hour for me to answer. Everybody just settle in, enjoy yourself, stand up, stretch a little bit if you need to. Well, you know, the only people that thought that was a win were the people that didn't think children should have options for school. I mean, that's the only people. And you didn't ask me this, but I want to offer that if you don't think we need some help with our education here in Georgia, just consider this. We had at least 3, maybe 4 justices of the Supreme Court that are not able to read the Constitution here in Georgia. And the reason I say that is not to be smart, but because, you know, they were creating ideas and a concept and put one word in the Constitution that they thought the framers of our Constitution didn't have enough sense to put in there. And it was the word exclusive. So they applied the word that, you know, they felt by their own political convictions, really. I'll tell you exactly what I think.
Don't be shy, please.
I'm not running for office, and I appreciate somebody who does run for office speaking the truth, you know. I know that's tough. But local control, that's just a smokescreen. When we hear groups say, well, the Supreme Court restored local control, that's a smokescreen. What that means is we gave the power back to where the power was, and that's in local school districts. Folks, we need to move away from the old concepts of local school districts having total control over education. This comes back from an agrarian economy. Do you know we still go by those things? Our school days, our school year, the way we teach children, still back in an agrarian economy. And I agree with Senator Rogers. The motivation here in staying here is not let's see what we can do to help the children. It's let's see what we can do to preserve these old structures that guarantee our jobs. Someone pointed out to me that probably the biggest employer in most counties outside of Atlanta is the public school system. So we've got a lot of forces saying, leave us alone. Leave everything as it is. Charter schools, other forms of school choice become a tremendous threat, and it shouldn't be. I'll end the comment by just saying, if you really want to talk about local control, you who are parents here know what the most basic local control is, and who better to know what their children needs than their parents. We're not living in a society now where parents are dumb and somebody needs to tell them what to do. This is all changed now. Parents need to take control. It's theirs to have.